The Wahiwa Value-Added Product Development Center adds to the educational mission of community colleges. Hawaii has celebrated success in agriculture, and we want to support local agriculture by investing in growing the Made in Hawaii, Produced in Hawaii, and Processed in Hawaii brands. Resources available on site will support local entrepreneurs in improving their products and business models, reducing the need for businesses to leave Hawaii to become viable. We offer programming curtailed around value-added businesses, equipment that are unique to Hawaii and typically too expensive for small businesses. Provide consulting and know-how to help improve products, reduce cost of production, and increase shelf life, all critical to the success of local products and are now available in Central Oahu for statewide access through the community colleges. When we look at facilities that can help support scaling products, bringing new products to market, there's very few in Hawaii. Equipment like our hyperbaric chamber that will help stabilize shelf life for products. These are things that our entrepreneurs need so that their products can get into the store, so that their products can make that trip across the ocean. Keeping businesses local, supporting local agriculture, and strengthening local entrepreneurial pipelines are core to the mission of the Wahiwa Value-Added Product Development Center and the community colleges. I would love for you to learn more about what we are doing here by looking at our website and joining us for a tour so that we can continue strengthening Hawaii's local economy through agriculture.
All right. Again, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm the manager here at the Wahiwa Value-Added Product Development Center. That was a little bit about our program, but we're here today to talk about Co-Manufacturing 101. And we're really thankful to have an expert in this space, Nolan Lewin, Executive Director of the Rutgers Food Innovation Center. Nolan works closely with food entrepreneurs and manufacturers navigating commercialization, scale-up, and co-manufacturing partnerships. Our goal today is to demystify co-manufacturing, what it is, when it makes sense, how to find the right partner, and what founders should know before entering into these relationships. So whether you're currently producing out of your kitchen, using a shared facility, or already speaking with co-mans, this session should really help you get a practical framework of thinking about how to properly scale. And so just separate ask for everyone in the audience, if you could drop in the chat the types of products you produce, it'd be really helpful for today's conversation. And so Nolan, thanks so much for joining us. Can you share more about the Rutgers FIC, what you offer and how you work with startup food entrepreneurs?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the group here. The Rutgers Food Innovation Center is part of the Rutgers University system. We are one of 22 outreaches throughout the state of New Jersey. We're part of the Agricultural Experimentation Group, and we are the only food and beverage manufacturing facility in the Rutgers system. I've been the executive director here for 8 years. Prior to joining Rutgers, I served in the private sector. I was plant manager for several large companies. I helped scale up some iconic brands like the Bai flavored waters. Worked for Hanover Foods, doing fresh salads, soups, and entrees. Worked with high pressure processing. I actually built an HPP facility in New Jersey about 12, 13 years ago called Stay Fresh Foods. And prior to that, I owned my own businesses, retail, restaurant, catering. My wife and I still have a food truck that we run, that she runs. And I help her out with that. But essentially, the Food Innovation Center is designed to help companies of all sizes, especially young, early-stage startups. But we do work with several large companies and have in the past as well. We were actually one of the early facility places that Impossible Foods, Impossible Burger, used to establish their brand. That was about 11, 12 years ago that they were here. And essentially the center is designed to help accelerate, incubate, and commercialize businesses of every size.
And Nolan, so we have your slide deck pulled up, so let me know if you want me to move forward on it.
Okay. I can't see the deck here.
Oh, so right now I'm on the slide talking about mission and vision.
Okay. Everyone else,
Presented.
Oh,
you guys can see
you
the
not see
slide,
it?
right? No.
I'll go back out.
While you're doing that, Chris, Nolan, the companies, some of the companies we have here, we have some non-alcoholic ginger beer, we got sauces and marinades, cookies, jams, puddings, fresh dog food, puddings, desserts, salad dressings, dehydrated beef and root veg, plant-based food, sauces, dips, and dressings. So we got a good variety representation here today.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear you have such a diverse group of people who are helping you guys out, and you're helping. We've touched on almost all of those categories, I think. Maybe dehydrated beef is one that we haven't, but we really here at Rutgers Food Innovation have a mission, and our mission is to stimulate sustainable economic growth and prosperity. So we're a nonprofit 501c3 entity. Even though we're part of the university, we are fee for service. We do charge for some of our services, including food defense, food safety, HACCP plans, things like that. But we are really designed to be a center to help businesses in the local community, helping them come up with practical solutions. We're located in a very agricultural part of New Jersey, the southern part of the state, the Garden State, as New Jersey is also known by. And we're a trusted source for information and guidance in those areas. So one of the things that we really stress a lot on is food safety and manufacturing products safely. Our vision is to act as a catalyst that promotes viable and prosperous food processing and agricultural base, and to be recognized as a global model for regional economic development. And I think this is our 26th year as an entity, as Rutgers Food Innovation Center. Our building was put up in 2008, 2009. So we've been very influential, not only in New Jersey and the rest of the country, but globally. We've attracted companies from around the world to come to New Jersey and the United States. Next slide, please. We are an NBIA winner of several Incubator of the Year awards. We've actually won it, I think, 4 or 5 times over the past 25 years. But we also have a global outreach, and we call it a soft landings program as part of our accelerator program. And you'll see some of the clients that we've worked with in a little bit on those. Next slide, please. So we basically have 3 big buckets that we work out of. Our services include learning, where we teach and train specialized services such as HACCP, SQF, GMPs. And we have a course that we do twice a year called Food Business Basics. That course is designed to help people who are very new to the industry, who want to at least get their feet wet and learn a little bit about what it takes to open up a food or beverage business and or manufacture products. I know a lot of you are self-manufacturing, where you're using a commercial kitchen, a shared kitchen space, and at some point you're going to want to know when's the right time to move into your own space or move up to another co-packer, co-manufacturer. So we talk about the second bucket, about innovating, and that's where we talk about business and technical mentoring. So your organizational planning. Do you want to become a regional brand, a national brand, a global brand? We talk a little bit, and it's a little bit of a reality check for a lot of people, because it's very expensive to be in the food and beverage space, as you guys have probably already figured out, especially being in Hawaii, where your costs are usually a lot more expensive than the rest of the U.S. market here. You can't just go down to the corner store and buy certain ingredients. It has to come from somewhere else. New product ideation and prototype development. I have a small team of people here, 2 food scientists, a total of about 9 full-time employees and 4 part-timers. And we've done a lot of different types of products. So we have a lot of experience in terms of new product ideations and prototype development. Sometimes people come to us and they just want to have a couple of products made that they can go to investors with. Most of the time, is if you guys watch Shark Tank at all, you know that proof of concept is really what people are looking for, investors are looking for. So we'll talk about what product, package, and process development looks like in terms of what you want to become, at which stage you might even want to sell your business to somebody, and I know that's a goal for a lot of people. We have the technology and operations assessment capability because we are food industry experts. We come from manufacturing and operations, as I have, and the rest of my team are all veterans from companies like Campbell Soup or Unilever or Mondelez. So we understand what manufacturing and growing to be manufacturers has to be. Marketing and sales strategy based on our own experiences again, but we also are involved with the Specialty Food Association, where we serve as the judges for the Sophie Awards, their Academy Award, if you will, in the food and beverage industry. This will be the 5th year that we'll be doing the food and beverage judging for them, and they consider us a good partner in terms of our knowledge and capability. And acceleration is product manufacturing in our shared use facility. So not only R&D, but we do have some manufacturing capabilities here in hot fill processing. So we can do jellies, jams, teas, sauces, hot sauces, tomato sauces, salad dressings. We have several larger pieces of equipment that will do industrial size, high shear mixing, so you can get a salad dressing and mayonnaise consistency if necessary. But most of our production capability is in acidified or high acid filled glass or PET bottles. We do have daily and short-term rentals of use of our facility. We work with one client at a time each day. But we do have clients that come back multiple times a year. So if they're manufacturing enough product to get into their markets or local retailers, and all of a sudden they start to grow, they can come back and do another production run whenever they need to. We allow them to do that. If they have something that they want to do long term, like for example, Impossible, when they were here, they took over one of our rooms, and they were here for about 1.5 years, just figuring out their commercialization process, how they were going to package and properly store and ship and so forth. So we help them with that. We are a USDA and FDA inspected facility, which makes us very unique among FICs. A lot of food manufacturing innovation centers don't have both the dual jurisdiction of FDA and USDA. So we don't do a lot of USDA because it's just so much more complicated, as you probably all know. But we do have that capability here. We also have the ability to bring in outside certifying bodies like kosher, halal, gluten-free, free from, all the designations. And those designations have to be for that specific product. It can't be for the facility as a whole because we have multiple users. So when they use their certification for their product, it's just for what they're manufacturing at that time. Next slide, please. So this is a kind of an outline. It's a little hard to see, but this is our facility here. The gold area here on the bottom right corner is where we have our conference room, our smaller observation room, and then we have a test kitchen just to the left in that gold area, and then a small micro lab across the hall. We don't do any pathogen testing here. It's strictly for pH, water activity, solids and bricks, things like that. Any pathogen testing we have sent out to a certified laboratory, preferably within the area. The red area is our office area. The green area is our manufacturing space. So this is where the food manufacturing plant starts. There are 4 bays, if you see from the top to the bottom. 2 of those are refrigerated spaces. The the one on the top and the one second from the top. Our hot process line is the larger room. That's actually got a divider in it, so we have industrial size braziers, cookers, ovens, things that can be the first stage of manufacturing for the hot fill line. And if you look to the right, you'll see the kettles that we have, some of the industrial kettles on the right side there. Yep. And that's just one side of the hot process room. And then we have warehousing space in the back of the building for refrigerated and freezer storage, about 42 pallet positions in each of those spaces, along with ambient and the loading dock to the back. Next slide. And again, we talked about what our capabilities are: refrigerated food processing, beverages, and hot processing. We do have a bakery room where we actually, one of our very first clients was Shar gluten-free bread. They Italian company, was part of our global outreach program. They came here and set up their shop in our bakery room and made a couple thousand loaves of bread a day. We helped them reformulate, and I'll talk a little bit more about them later. And then we have our blast chilling, freezing, refrigerated, frozen, and ambient storage. Next. So kind of a bubble of all the different industries that we touch upon. So if it has to do with food or food movement, we're pretty much involved with that, all the way from venture capital investor groups to economic development partners. We work closely with the state of New Jersey and the USDA and FDA on programs. We're part of the programs that offer grants for early stage R&D and development work. You should absolutely make sure, I'm sure Chris and Allison have given you some really good sources for help from the government, the state government in Hawaii. I'm sure you guys have some programs there, right? I'm hoping Chris says yes. Yes. But we touch upon all these different bubbles that in some way impact food and beverage throughout the industry. Next slide. We also do some work on pharma and university research projects. In the last couple of years, we started working with UConn, University of Connecticut, Tufts up in Boston, and we do like allergen testing, gluten-free products, things like that. But they're basically just packets that are blended with amino acids and minerals for gastrointestinal research in children. We've done juices for Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. So we do this. Then this is a pretty specific type of work that we do. It has to be done in a GMP certified facility in order to do this kind of work. Next slide. So I mentioned some of the brands that we've worked with. You guys probably recognize some of them. My friend, I was talking to Chris and Allison about my friend Yo's here. There's a Froyo yogurt bite that this guy's been working on for 10 years. And he just launched in the last 6 to 8 months. I strongly recommend that you guys look him up online. He's an excellent mentor. He's really super friendly. He's based in Sherman Oaks, California. And he talks about starting up his business. I think Allison just put the website in the chat area, so you guys can make a note of that. But a super nice guy, kind of guy you would just say, "Hey, can I call you and ask you a question?" And he would say yes. Shard gluten-free bread, Mush Foods. We worked on a mycelium project, and we worked from really early stage all the way up to larger companies, as you see here.
Hey, Nolan. Yeah, I kind of just want to add to this. I mean, you've worked with hundreds and thousands of companies, over the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
You probably have so many examples of these, early stage brands trying to kind of navigate the rift into co-man. But maybe to take it a step back, the term co-manufacturing gets used a lot in kind of food business conversations, but many early stage founders don't fully understand what it actually means in practice. Maybe based on all these relationships you built with these small brands, how do you define co-manufacturing, and how does the relationship typically work between a brand and a co-manufacturer?
So I'm going to use the term co-manufacturer, co-packer interchangeably, even though they're a little bit different, because co-mans typically buy your ingredients for you. Co-packers can or cannot. You could actually buy it and ship it to them. But for the sake of this conversation, I'll just say co-mans and mean both. And it really depends on the company itself. If they're well funded and they're ready to, and they've raised revenue, capital, whatever, they can move pretty quickly. And that usually means lining up a co-packer, co-manufacturer pretty early on as they're starting to gain traction. If you're an early stage, small startup, you bootstrapped your revenue, and you're just trying to get into market, it can be something that you have to look at in terms of what the MOQ, minimum order quantities, are from these co-packers. And again, you have to realize they're running a for-profit business. So you may only need 100 or 200 or 300 jars of your product, but they don't want to stop their line and clean up and change over and do whatever they have to do to make your product run in their line. Because it's not just an hour or two, depending on how fast they move, but it's the hours before and the hours after to clean up and take care of any allergens and make sure everything's done the right way. So it's critical to understand who you're selling to, not to get too far ahead of your skis, as we say, because just talking to a retailer who says, "Oh yeah, I can put this in all my stores," and he's like, you're thinking, "Okay, I'm going to sell thousands of these now." You really want to have orders almost in your hand before you start talking about how much quantity you're going to need from a co-packer or co-manufacturer, because of those higher minimum order quantities. If you're lucky and you find a smaller quantity co-packer, and you can do that, even though it might cost you a little bit more to make smaller quantities, it's better than having unsold product ingredients, packaging, all of that sitting in a warehouse that somehow you're paying for. You want to make sure that you're actually really able to sell your product, and that takes a lot of leather hitting the pavement kind of work, where you're going to go around and spend time at farmers markets, at craft fairs, maybe getting into one retailer that's going to give you a weekend to sample your product and see how things go. So there's a lot involved with getting started and understanding when the next time to make that move into a co-packer or co-manufacturer might be.
And so,
I always say,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was just wanted to ask a clarifying question. So in its most straightforward terms, the co-man provides the facility, the labor, the equipment, the operational systems, while the brand or the client owns the product concept and the customer relationship. Is that right?
Yes, and that's a really important point you want to remember too, because if you go to a co-manufacturer and you say to him, "Hey, I want you to make my sauce," and he says, "Okay, give me your recipe," he comes up with his version of your recipe and then proceeds to try and economize it because you've got too many steps, or you're taking too long to process, or steep, or braise, or bloom, or whatever it is that you do that's special to your particular product in small batches. In a larger scale, a lot of these co-mans will just try and get it as easily, quickly, as efficiently as they can to you, but it changes the way that your product looks, tastes, feels. You want to own your recipe. You always want to own your own recipe. Don't let anybody sell you their recipe and then hold on to that because you decide to move at some point. You don't own the recipe anymore. And it could be a real big problem. And I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come to me and say, "I've been doing this for 5-10 years and I don't own the recipe, and now my co-packer's kicking me out and he's not giving me the recipe." So you really want to be careful about that.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. And what other, I guess, general misconceptions do founders have about co-mans?
Well, again, they are a for-profit entity. They are not there to help you necessarily become successful. They might not know who you can sell to. You need to find a network of people that you can trust, number one, and that includes the co-packer, co-man. It has to be a relationship that you build with them based on your growth. They have to have the same vision that you have in terms of the potential to make this a successful business. So, getting in a position where, and I always like to tell the clients that are early stage with us, you have to do this as long as you can on your own till you get to the point where you don't have time anymore in a day. You're making your product, 18 hours a day, you're barely sleeping. That's when you normally would go to a co-packer and say, I need somebody to help me do this, and line up what that looks like in terms of your process and how well it works. And when you're developing your products, keep in mind that there has to be a process that works, that's efficient for the people that are going to be doing it for you when you're not doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a major decision for founders is really knowing when to stop self-manufacturing and transition processing outside to a third party. And you mentioned capacity limitations, but what might be some other signs that a founder is ready to move on from self-manufacturing?
There's a lot of factors that can affect that. If you're doing really well with a product and you've been in a couple different environments where you're able to really get traction on your product, selling to friends and family doesn't count, because they're going to try and support you as long as they can. But you really need to have people who appreciate the flavor, the pricing point, the story behind your product. Authenticity really sells products. We're used to making premium and super premium products here at Rutgers because you just can't make an inexpensive product in smaller batches. It just doesn't work that way. There will be some scale of economies if you go to a larger, faster manufacturer, if you're not sacrificing your quality or any other part of your brand. Have to keep in mind that it's going to be a risk when you start to take that next step up, and it might mean going from 1,000 or 2,000 units at a time to 5 or 10,000 units in order to meet that MOQ, that minimum order quantity that we talked about, and then maybe an influencer or somebody on TikTok sees your product or uses it or samples it or talks about it online, and all of a sudden his 3 million followers start giving you orders. Don't get too excited about that because, again, if you're selling direct to consumers, sometimes the shipping and everything else that's involved can be really cost prohibitive, even though it's a really great product. I have a woman who makes a non-alcoholic beverage here, and she uses great ingredients. She actually uses crystals in the room and music, new age music to play while we're doing that. So it's a little bit, it's a little nice to see that. But she sells the product. She has to sell the product for $40 for a 750 ml bottle. That's just because of the quality of the ingredients that she uses. It's also a very unique product. The company's Seraphim, if you want to look it up. But she's actually getting a lot of traction, and she's about ready to go to a co-packer net right now. We're trying to figure out how to change her formula over to something that's going to be more efficient for the co-packer, co-man to use, rather than steeping tea for 8 minutes or playing crystal music in the room. Those are things that we want to help her when we get her ready to move over to co-man.
So Nolan, in your experience working with those kind of brands, have you seen any telltale signs that a founder might be moving a little too early to a co-man? Whether it's market validation or margins not being there?
Yeah, no, I have people that call me all the time, and they're like, I have an idea, and I want to go right to a co-packer, a co-man. I'm like, no, that's a bad idea. No one's going to do a small quantity for you. They all want to do larger quantities. You need to start out small. You need to start out hard. And go, as I said, make as many of those products as you can yourself, till you get really good traction. And don't make that leap to even if you've got the money. And I'm assuming a lot of people don't have a lot of money to start up with. They're trying to bootstrap a little bit. But take your time and get through that. Look at the data that people you're going to collect from people, have face-to-face conversations with the clients that are tasting your product, and see if they give you feedback. People are pretty honest. They'll let you know if something is really, really good or not. And if your price point's too high, they'll talk about that. They'll say, oh, I would buy it if it was $10, not $15. Or you can ask that question of people too. So get as much data as you can from the people. Know who your consumers are. Know who your customer is. Are you aiming for the 18 to 35-year-old group? When I was plant manager for the Bai beverage, BAI, you guys know that water, right? The flavored water. Ben Weiss was the founder, and he started out thinking that his target audience was 18 to 35-year-old females. He even designed the bottle based to fit in the hand of that client, of that person. And after he started selling his product, he was actually giving it away, by the way, in New York City. He would go to office buildings like Facebook and Google and give away his product. He found out that his consumer was not 15 to 35-year-old woman. It was, in fact, a 35 to 60-year-old group of people, men and women, who were just looking for less sugar products. It's a 5-calorie drink, flavored water, that had natural sweeteners and so forth. So he learned quickly who his clients were, who his customers were, and he's pivoted on the flavor profiles and went for more adult beverage tastes like cranberry and pomegranate and things like that.
Nolan, can we talk about the actual search process for a founder? This is where a lot of our founders can feel overwhelmed, kind of where to begin. And looking in the chat, we have a lot of different product categories, everything from ginger beer, sauces, marinades, baked goods, fresh dog food, puddings. So where should founders realistically begin their search? Is it just through, let's say, industry directories, university partners like ourselves, trade shows? Like, where to start?
For partners, I would say universities definitely a really good source, because typically, we're very connected to the industry, right? So if we don't have anyone in particular that we know can do that, we usually know someone else that can refer them to someone else. So our collaborative networks, we have a quarterly Food Innovation Center meeting where we talk about all the different things that are affecting the Food Innovation Centers. I think that founders should be looking at as much networking as they can. That includes food shows. If you haven't already been to a larger food show, you should definitely go. You'll learn a lot. You'll get to talk to other founders. You can look at competitors' products. You should be looking online and understanding who your competitors are going to be. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come in and say, I've got this, pineapple teriyaki sauce, nobody else makes that. And I say, that's not true. And I'll do a quick Google search for them and say, here you go, here's 50 of them. Well, they don't use fresh pineapple juice. So I'm like, that's not true. And we'll look at the ingredients, and then we'll basically debunk what they're thinking, because they haven't done the research. They haven't looked deep enough into what the competitors are and who's making their product. Maybe you can even find out where it's made, kind of a little bit of detective work. On the back of packaging, you'll typically see where products are made. And if it's coming from, for example, Hawaii, you've got a pretty limited number of co-packers that are probably there. Same thing in New Jersey. We have a list of co-packers who we know do beverages or sauces or other things. But we can kind of do a little bit of detective work and figure out by a little maybe Chat GPT search on human grade pet food manufacturers in New Jersey or Hawaii, and you'll get a pretty short list of people that are doing that. You can reach out to them and ask them flat out, hey, I'm starting up. What do you need from me if I wanted to come and work with you? An early stage is fine. They know you're not ready to come right away, but at least do that kind of research and figure it out so that you'll be better prepared when it comes time, if you need to do that quickly.
Mm-hmm. And I know some states like Oregon, through their Department of Ag, have actually formed directories for co-packer searches. So those are resources that all exist online that just take a little bit of sleuthing. But
Mhm.
maybe Nolan, from your experience, I mean, bring brands to different shows like locally, but also nationally, like Fancy Food Show. And I know you also sponsor brands on these different trade show opportunities. Like, what have you seen on behalf of brand in connecting to potential co-packers on the floor of a trade show?
Um, I've not seen too many co-packers walking the specialty food show. Mostly what we see are brokers and buyers. Um, and the other food innovation centers that are there are typically already manufacturing at some level. So um, I don't know that the food shows are necessarily the best place to find a co-packer. I think finding one that is reliable and can help you grow, preferably that's as close to home as possible so that you can go to those facilities and take a look at how they're making your product. I think that's an important piece of it too, is to actually keep a close eye on it. I think someone asked in the chat about altering ingredients. I just saw. You have, again, as I said earlier, you have to really make sure that they're following your recipes, and if they do change it, even though it's your recipe, they need to notify you of that. Like, if they can't find orange juice from Florida, and instead they have to source it from Brazil, that's a different product, and you should be made aware of that and know what's in your product.
So I guess so say a brand connects with the co-man, they start the conversation. What are some of those most important questions a founder should ask during the initial conversations? I know you referenced things like MOQ, minimum order quantity, but what about like lead times, sourcing, who handles sourcing? Is sourcing something that the co-man's expected to handle all in? Like, what have you seen?
I've seen it all, from give me the recipe, I'll get your stuff, or if you've been making your product for a period of time at a commercial kitchen or a small co-packer, whatever the case might be, you know where you're buying your product from, and more than likely it's not from the local grocery store. You're probably getting something sent in that's special or unique to your particular product. So when you talk to a co-man, you want to have that conversation about where the products will be coming from. Is he allowed to substitute something, for example, a cane sugar? If you're using that, if he's, and in Hawaii, I imagine it's probably a little bit easier to get sugar, right, or certain types of sweeteners. But it might not make that much of a difference to the recipe, whether it comes from Hawaii or from the Philippines or wherever else it might be coming from. But you have to make sure of that, because again, it could taste different. It could make the product act differently. And it's important to understand that you own the recipe, and you should own the recipe. Lead times, that's always going to be a question that you're going to want to ask the co-packer. You're going to want to also make sure that you don't become bottom on the totem pole here, because if you're really small, it's easy for them to push you off and say, oh, I know you needed your product for next week's craft fair, but I can't get to it. It's going to take 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. So have those conversations with the co-mans and understand what the potential pushback can be from them. Are they allowed to do that? Will you allow them to do that? Or will you order given enough time to account for those delays or setbacks? If you're in fact sending the product to them and you're buying it, especially if you're in Hawaii, where's it coming from? How much lead time is it going to take? What factors do you have to take into account? Weather, time of year, availability of products, all of those things. And you should definitely have those conversations with the co-packer, co-mans.
And I might just add from experience, also just general expectations around communication, especially for a brand that is entering a relationship with a co-man outside their region. So say for a Hawaii brand that's worked with a co-packer in California or the Pacific Northwest, understanding what's a good method and cadence of communication. Since you won't have eyes on, say, inventory, you won't be able to drop into the manufacturing facility, as frequently maybe as you'd like. So you lose some of that control, right? So, if you're looking to know what inventory they have on hand of, say, jars for your pasta sauce, you want to make sure that communication expectations really dialed in, because you can't just swing by, after work one day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's critical, because even here, when we have clients that are scheduled, we have a calendar that goes out about 2 months now at this point. But we talk to them about 2 weeks before their scheduled date of arrival here, to ensure that if in fact they're sending products, ingredients, packaging, glass, caps, whatever else is coming, that it's scheduled and will arrive here. We will receive on behalf of the clients. They don't have to be here when a pallet of glass shows up, but we'll do an inspection and we'll make sure that everything's valid. If they're sending in frozen or refrigerated product, we do look at temperature and monitor that, make sure that it's safe. We have rejected loads because people have sent in refrigerated product on non-refrigerated trucks, and that's just a violation of GMPs, good manufacturing practices. So by checking back with them in 2 weeks, that gives them usually enough time, or gives you enough time to pivot and find out, solve the problem and figure out the right way to get this held on schedule. Sometimes things happen, there's no way around it. We've had, the boiler breakdown here, things like that have happened. And we've actually had a client lose product that was in the kettle. We just couldn't continue to heat it, and we had no way to save it, and we wound up having to dump the product to the floor because we couldn't get to the right temperature. So be ready for those things. I don't have to tell you guys, if you're entrepreneurs, stuff happens in life. There's just some things that we have little or no control over, but to the best of your ability, try and plan out for every contingency. Think about what happens if this happens.
So Charles asks in the chat, why aren't they just working with a food scientist? Why a co-man? So he said they worked with a food scientist, then handed a formulation to a co-packer. So maybe we could talk about kind of R&D expectations. I know things change in the kind of co-man process, from them receiving your formulation and having to make tweaks to kind of fit their framework of production. I guess maybe what level of product development should a founder realistically expect before even talking to a co-man, and how that changes over time?
Well, if you're a founder and you're developing a product, my expectation is that you know everything there is to know about your own product. You know exactly what you have to do to make it come out the way that it comes out. You know the ingredients you have to have. You know the process. A process authority letter, the validation of that process. Here at Rutgers, we require that before we'll manufacture anything for anybody. And it basically just is an extra line of insurance in terms of making sure that it's an acceptable way to manufacture the product. We often tell clients, you should definitely go and visit the co-man, co-packing facility at least once. If it's far away, I know it's hard to do. There's Zoom capabilities, so you could do it that way. We require our clients to be in the facility with us when we're manufacturing the day of. They have to sign off on that. They have to say, yes, this is what I wanted. This is the right color. This is the right taste. This is the right texture. It's the right bottle. It's the right label. So we call it a perfect package check. And if they sign off on that, then they really can't complain too much. So if you're going to a co-packer and he's giving you the option of doing a perfect package check, you should also kind of insist on that and make sure that they are doing it exactly the right way. Some co-packers and co-mans don't want to be bothered too much by the founders. They want to just do the recipe and give you your product. But if your product is one of those things that really needs a little bit of oversight, a little bit of extra TLC, you have to dedicate yourself to that and make sure that you're really watching every step of the way that you can, because successful brands are consistent. they make the product taste the same way every single time, as best as they can to their abilities. When I was at Buy, we had a Buy employee, a quality control person, who tested every single batch of product that was made. And we were making products 5,000 gallons at a time, about every hour and a half. So that quality control person, he or she was in there actually testing it against a retained sample from another batch to make sure that it was right.
That could be another question too that our founders could note down in terminology. It could be the letters QA. So like, what's your quality assurance process? Is there a certain person I talk to? What's your process? So just adding in that terminology to your list of questions you would ask, because that's an important one.
Absolutely. So quality assurance, certificate of analysis, another important term. If you're buying product from an importer, they have to provide you with a certificate that says this is a safe product. It's been sterilized, it's been checked for pathogens and so forth. All of your ingredients should have a certificate of analysis or a certificate of assurance that it meets the standards. When you're dealing with fresh product, fresh produce, fruit, vegetables, things like that, it can vary, right? You can have very sweet pineapple. You can have pineapple that doesn't taste sweet at all because of maturity or other factors. But when you're using an ingredient, you need to have a certain amount of sugar, brix, right? BRIX, which is the total sugars in that product. You need to have a certain color, right? It has to be a yellow, and it has to be stated, golden yellow to pale yellow or something like that. All of the ingredients have to meet your range of standards in order to maintain that consistency. It's important to be able to have that. Otherwise, they could put whatever they want in there.
So Joshua asked, beside the recipe issue, are there other pitfalls to avoid when entering into an agreement with the co-man? Maybe we could talk a little bit about NDAs, expectation around entering an NDA when you engage with a co-packer. Where should it come from? Should the co-man provide you an NDA, or is it up to the founder to provide it? What's a good format? Should it be a mutual NDA? Like, what have you seen?
So we use a mutual NDA here because Rutgers has already, kind of established the wording behind what we can and can't do. Bottom line is, NDAs are okay, but if you're talking about a product like tomato sauce or hot sauce, there's not many different variations of that in the real world. Let's be very honest about that. You can ask for an NDA; they'll probably give it to you, and there's really nothing to stop them from taking your recipe, tweaking it a little bit, putting a different kind of pepper in, or putting a little more vinegar or some cinnamon or whatever else they're going to put in there. But that's just the reality of having a co-manufacturer, co-packer understand how you make your product. If they're reputable and you have a great reputation with them, you'll know. But it's something you should establish early on in the game. That's the reputation you have to build in when you're finding someone who you can depend on, who you can trust, and it's going to be your true partner in manufacturing.
Is there a way to navigate as a founder that version control, where your original formulation gets tweaked in the process, just for peace of mind? Is there something that could be woven into an agreement or a clause?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's if your process authority letter, which has all the details of your pH, your water activity, all those things, your fill temperatures, that should be kind of the guiding light for the co-packer, co-man. But in terms of the ingredients itself, that's a conversation you have to have with them as a founder. It has to be stated clearly that they're not to substitute, and that can be in the agreement. Anything without your express consent, and you should have samples sent from each run if they're doing it, or each batch or whatever you want to do. That you can, if you're not there physically, that you can test it and make sure that before it's released into the market or sent to your distributors or wherever else you're going to be going with it, that it really is the product that you want to be out in the marketplace. I had a woman call me, and she was making some sort of a baked product, a cookie type of product. She'd never had it tested by a laboratory, and she started getting complaints after 2 or 3 months that people were saying that the cookies were going moldy. Well, guess what? She never had it tested, and she went to a co-packer, a co-manufacturer, and said, make my recipe. He did. He made exactly the way she had written it, but they hadn't accounted for the humidity levels in the summertime. And here in New Jersey, it gets very hot and very humid, and mold can grow very quickly. Yeast and mold grow very quickly on products that don't have any stabilizers or preservatives or other method of inhibiting that kind of growth.
How would a brand approach exit planning if the inevitable or happen in a relationship were to end, whether it was for good or for bad with the co-man?
You always want to try and make it as friendly as possible. Let's put it that way, because they can do a lot of damage to your brand if it ends badly. Again, it comes down to that relationship you would start with, and as you're moving along, a good co-manufacturer is going to understand your growth, and they're going to try and help you as much as they can without hurting you. So, maybe their minimum order quantity is usually 10,000 units, but they see that you're at 5,000, and they don't want you to have to make that quantum leap to 10. They might say, okay, let's just bump it up to 6,000 this time, maybe go up to 7,000 the time after that. And you have these honest conversations with people. These are your business partners. And your success ultimately should be their success, because without you, they lose that revenue. And that's the way we look at it here at Rutgers. We're more concerned about the success and quality of the product than we are of how much money or revenue we can generate from doing the initial runs for those people.
So I know we're getting close on time. So I just want to say, first off, Nolan, thank you. This has been incredibly helpful. I know we've been breezing through all sorts of topic points here. I think just to reframe, one of the biggest takeaways today is that co-manufacturing isn't just a production decision. It really is an evolution and transition of your business model. And for a founder, success often comes down to preparation around this. So it's understanding your product, validating your market, choosing that right operational partner, and then really building those systems for long-term growth. I think with that, I wanted to open the floor to our audience if there were any additional questions. And if there were questions, provide our contact information. Nolan, if you'd be open to sharing your contact that we could email all the attendees after, that'd be incredibly helpful. And just, thank everyone for their time and joining us today. I do want to point out, we are offering Better Process Control School's Acidified Foods course coming up in June 4th and 5th at the Waihala Valley-Added Product Development Center. So this is for manufacturing acidified food products like sauces, dressings, pickles. And so there's a link in the chat. Haley, you want to share more? You have your hand raised.
Thanks, Chris. I actually have a question for Nolan, for everyone, perhaps just specific to working with Rutgers at a co-manufacturing capacity. Could you share maybe a ballpark of maybe how much to expect in terms of an investment, as in maybe the first either pilot or a small quantity run, like what that invoice might look like? Is it a few $1,000s, $10,000? I get that questions quite a bit from just a formulation perspective as we finish up our product development on our side to decide whether to pursue a co-man or kind of stay with the commercial kitchen, depending on what budget folks are working with. And then in your experience with your team, or your PD team, what kind of timeline does that usually look like if an entrepreneur comes with an idea or kind of a home recipe to turning it into a sellable, commercialized product?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's probably the question I get asked every single time I have a conversation with the founder. So we have an hourly rate that we charge here. It's $250 an hour for R&D and business development work. We typically say anywhere between 6 and 12 hours for product development, depending on how complicated it is. So in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $3,000 for initial R&D recipe development, maybe some variations of testing that goes on. When they come into the test kitchen to work with our food scientists for the day, to where they get up to the 35-gallon kettle of that product that can be made. It's hand filled. We're not using the bottling line yet, but as long as they have a process authority letter and we're following it and we're making it safely, they can take that product and go to craft fairs and farmers markets and sell the product safely. We'll make sure of that there's an ingredient statement on there that we do in there. So $2,000 to $3,000 is pretty typical for R&D, early stage prototype development for a very small batch, relatively small batch. Once they start getting into larger quantities, like the 90-gallon, 180-gallon size kettles, our rate changes because the room rate for the bottling line and the people to run that line goes up. It's around $2,000 to $2,500 a day for the bottling line that we have here, and that can be 500 to 1,000 bottles a day. So somewhere around $2 a bottle, plus the cost of the ingredients, the glass, the label, and so forth, are the usual numbers that I throw out there. So up to $5,000 to get to a larger manufacturing amount of product is pretty typical for a straightforward, drink, jelly, jam, tea, sauce, things like that.
And now you have your hand up.
I just thought while we have both our food scientists and co-man expert on today, one of the reasons why we wanted to host this call is because a lot of the questions that we get in regards to food science and product development is about co-manufacturing. So maybe Haley, if you don't mind coming on and sharing, what are some questions that you get that you would maybe direct to start asking or looking for co-manufacturing or co-packing questions? Those are the two interchangeable terms we're talking about today. But maybe while we have you guys both together, it's a good opportunity to maybe talk about, okay, what's a good question to go talk to a food scientist about? When do I now go talk to maybe a co-packing or co-manufacturing expert on that? And maybe the differentiating that part of the operations and development of the product.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. That's a great question, and one I wish folks, hopefully after this webinar have a better understanding. So we, as a innovation center, don't do co-manufacturing in-house as opposed to the Rutgers capability. So what's helpful for generally working with food scientists, especially independent ones or working with us, for example, to know is what your plan is to manufacture after the formulation. So again, we have a shared kitchen, and by default, if you're producing with us at the Wahiwa Center, you would be self-manufacturing, and then of course leveraging our, great equipment. And we do have unifiller and a bottling line to speed up your packing and production processes. And I'm definitely able to support on, if you were to work with us, ways to make your process more efficient. However, if you do want to consider going the co-man route from the beginning, that would change the considerations for the product development work, just because it limits kind of how many steps you have to work with, what equipment your co-man has. So that's something that I would keep in mind as you are approaching, working with a food scientist for the formulation and the process development. And then we do have a process authority network, even though we don't have any process authorities on island currently. So we are working with other mainland university-based PAs to support our manufacturer. So if you are making currently self-producing a acidified sauce jam, beverage, tea, condiment, dressing, product, and need a PA letter, we can support you and connect you. However, if you're working with a co-man, sorry, a large part of that regulatory work is taken care of by your co-manufacturer. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add that, I know there were some questions about why not work with the food scientist, then the co-man. That's certainly possible. It depends where you are and what you're working on. Remember, one important factor is that sometimes a food scientist might not be aware of whatever equipment limitations there might be at a co-manufacturer. I think you said that. Again, we don't have everything to manufacture every kind of product here. We're limited a little bit in terms of what we own. Our clients they have the option of bringing in their own piece of machinery. We will allow them to do that. So, for example, I have a company that's going to be making a vegetable puree as a plate decoration, and he special ordered a $200,000 bowl chopper that has chopping and refrigeration capabilities in it because it's a cold chain product with no preservatives. So, and right now there's no thermal step in there. So there's a lot of factors that you have to look at and make sure that the co-mans have the capability and are doing it and following the guidelines.
And I'll say that I think it also wanted to touch on Lily's question about where to find co-mans. That's something I probably get the most, aside from the how much investment question for the co-man route. Google is the place to start. I'd say, quite a few of university-based innovation centers, including Rutgers, may be able to support you to do pilot runs. Kind of similar to what Nolan laid out, the way they work, which is not the same as how a commercial or private large co-man might work. It wouldn't be as hands-on, potentially, unless you find like ones that really could do really small minimum order quantities, as well as be able to pilot and R&D with you. So it really depends on the capability at the co-man. We do not offer co-man search as a service at the Wahila Center. However, I do have when co-mans come along, or if we meet one at these trade shows, or a previous client have a referral, I do keep them in our contacts, and where appropriate, we can hopefully share some contacts, but there are spreadsheets out there, lists out there that, especially I would suggest starting from the university. There are state universities with a collated list from within states co-man lists. So like Oregon State has a list. I'm not sure if Rutgers has its own list, but it would be most likely within their state. And you can definitely start there, especially if you have a hard time finding local on-island co-packers. And then on-island co-man search would be a little bit of a different story, just because a lot of co-manufacturing on-island, as we've experienced, tends to be a little more informal, where it's one more established brand with more capability or a facility helping out a smaller brand. So they are not completely operating as a co-manufactured business model, as opposed to more options in the mainland. So that's our experience. So in any case, it's very much relationship based. But if you're searching from cold calling, I would search from any channels you can. And then definitely industry groups could support that too. So Startup CPG or Naturally Network, and the university food innovation centers. Those are my suggestions. Nolan, do you have any resources on your end?
As far as co-mans and co-packers, we do have a couple that we have had clients move to with some success. It seems like everybody has one horror story that they always share, but for the most part, again, keep in mind that we're talking about products that are grown in the ground, that are transported, they're refrigerated, they're frozen, they're canned, they're packed, whatever the packaging might be when they come in. there's a lot of different factors that can affect the quality of the product and the consistency. So these are just things that I would reiterate to keep an eye on, with whoever you deal with, whether they're big and have been in business for a while. I mean, everything has to be watched at some level.
All right. Well, Nolan, thank you again. I know we ran a little over, so thank you for sticking on a little longer. Thanks everyone for sticking on a little longer to account for the late start. But I guess, yeah, any parting shots from you, Nolan?
I just want to thank you for inviting me to come on. I'm happy to participate in anything you guys have in the future. And it was very nice of you, Chris, to offer to pay for my airfare to come out to Hawaii. I just don't know how you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, for the follow-up co-packing boot camp that we'll hold. Yeah, we'll bring you out, but yeah, we'll work those details out. So Nolan, thank you again. Thank you, everyone. We'll have this uploaded on our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, please stay tuned for more webinars and workshops we'll be doing on site via our newsletter and social media. So yeah, have a great week, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Allie. Thank you, guys.